Taehyung's eyes darkened the second the words left my mouth, and I immediately flinched, worried he'd turn wolf again. He watched me closely. When he saw me move away from him, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When her eyes opened again, they were back to their normal color. "YN," he sighed. "You don't know why I'm with you now, but if I, for some reason, let you go, you'll find your way back to me somehow." I shook my head, ready to disagree and argue, but he kept talking. "Do you remember how you felt when I was away from you, yesterday? How did you feel immense pain and almost pass out?" I shuddered at the memory, but shook my head morosely. Now imagine that pain intensified by 10. You were downstairs, one floor away from me, when this happened. I don't even want to think about what would happen if you went any further. Besides, your instincts would tell you to come back to me if I don't get to you first. In the end, you would. The mate bond would force you to. My heart started to beat faster. Will I always feel this pain when I'm away from you? I saw Taehyung clench and unclench his fists. I wasn't sure if it was anger or something else. No. It will stop. Our bodies are slowly adapting to being away from each other. But we will always long for each other's presence. My shoulders slumped. So I'm never going home? Tears filled my eyes. Taehyung cursed under his breath as he watched me. Your expression told me everything I needed to know. He wouldn't let me go. He intended to keep me close to him forever. I cried more with this realization. Taehyung looked down at the pillows between us. "Oh, fuck," he said. He came towards me, knocking over the pillows in his path. I held up my hand, stopping him. No. No, please stop, I can't. Taehyung I groaned. "YN, please let me touch you. Please, it's killing my wolf to see you like this. It's my job as your mate to take care of you." I looked at him. I had finally reached my breaking point. Do not call me like that. I'm not your mate. It's not your job to do things for me. I screamed. I was hysterical. I couldn't control myself anymore. It was all too much for me. "YN," I heard Taehyung growl. He got up, running a hand through his hair with an agonized expression. Fuck you," he yelled and punched the wall. The entire room shook, his fist left behind a giant hole. I jumped back and cried some more. How did I get myself into this mess? I hugged my knees, letting all my emotions flow. My stomach lurched and I felt like I was about to throw up. I tried to ignore it, but the throbbing where Taehyung bit me was getting unbearable. Taehyung crouched down on my side of the bed. He seemed calmer, but his eyes were still black, which scared me even more. It's your mark, isn't it, baby? I know you must be in a lot of pain. Please let me make you feel better. I watched him as the tears continued to run down my face. He slowly lifted his hand and brought it close to my face, almost touching my cheek. I wanted this to happen so badly, to let him touch me and feel the sparks running through my body. I leaned towards him a little. I wanted to jump on your arms and hold him for life. The truth is, I didn't just want him to touch me because the pain would stop. I wanted to touch him because I wanted that agonized look to leave his face. I wanted to comfort him because I liked him. I liked my kidnapper. How is this possible? I snorted. No, I couldn't let that happen. I wasn't going to sit down and give up because he told me a crazy story. This could be your world, but it wasn't mine. I couldn't give in to that, mate bond. I ran to the other side of the bed. Please just leave, Taehyung, I cried. I just want to be alone. Little sobs left my mouth. He didn't move. No, he snapped. I will not leave you. I felt defeated. I covered my face with my hands and sobbed as I whispered, please leave. Please just leave. Please, I heard more curse words come out of his mouth. I repeated. And a few seconds later I heard footsteps coming out of the room. And that's when the pain really started. The days that followed were hellish. I had no idea how long I stayed in that room, writhing in pain thanks to the stupid bite mark Taehyung had placed on my neck. I spent most of the time lying in bed, screaming and shaking. While losing consciousness and waking up because of the pain. I lost count of how many times I got sick. I kept running between the private bathroom and the bed every time my stomach was churning. I knew that now I was just throwing up bile. I finally gave up trying to get back into bed and slept on the bathroom floor instead. I would wake up screaming as wave after wave of immense, throbbing agony coursed through my body. Kyle came to the room a few times with food, begging me to let Taehyung in. After he left, I heard Taehyung trashing the downstairs living room, breaking things and arguing with Kyle. It was so loud, I could only imagine what the beautiful hotel room looked like now. It just made me feel better about my decision to keep Taehyung at arm's length. He had no control over his anger, and I didn't want him near me. Sometimes I felt him outside my door. My pain got a little better. He would stay there for hours. Sometimes I heard his wolf whining. It made my heart ache a little, but I ignored it as best I could. Every time Kyle asked me to let Taehyung in, I just repeated again that I didn't want him near me. I would get over it on my own. Taehyung said the pain would stop in the end. Once that happened, I could finally get out of here. I just had to keep fighting. For days, the pain only got worse until I was a motionless mess on the floor. I couldn't eat. I could not sleep. I couldn't do anything. And what made things even worse was the fact that all I could think about was Taehyung. No matter how much I tried to stop it, my mind kept returning to him. I couldn't feel if he was outside my door anymore. I couldn't feel anything but pain. I wondered if he was out there or if he had completely forgotten about me and was doing something else to pass the time. The thought made me sad. I thought of her hair, her eyes, her chin, her mouth. I thought about her smile and how it felt to have her arms around me. I thought about my irrefutable attraction to him and how safe he made me feel, much more than he scared me. Somehow he made me feel like I wasn't alone. He was so kind to me, like I was a piece of glass about to break. He told me that he would always take care of me. He's shown me nothing but kindness since I've known him, and yet I rejected it. I mean, he kidnapped me. He almost killed a man. He was huge and strong and no doubt could snap me in half like a toothpick. And, oh, yeah, he could turn into a rabid wolf at any moment. I can't forget this. But despite all that, I still yearn to be by his side and feel your skin against mine. I wanted to kiss him again, hold his hand and stroke his hair. I wondered how he was feeling. God, he looked so heartbroken when I begged him to leave me alone. I wondered if he really felt that way or if it was all an elaborate act. He could just be a kidnapper playing mind games with his victim. But what if I really was his mate and I sent him away feeling awful after he opened his heart to me? My heart squeezed. I remembered that I didn't know if he was telling the truth about the whole mate thing. But I think he had turned into a wolf right in front of my eyes. So he sure as hell hadn't lied about being a werewolf. Which was a little scary when I thought about it, but your wolf hadn't hurt me. So he probably wasn't lying about me being his mate. And deep down, I secretly hoped he was telling the truth because, first, it would mean that I really was safe with my kidnapper. I mean, the guy said we were soulmates. No way would he really hurt me. Second, it would explain why I was so visibly attracted to him without even knowing him, and it would provide a simple explanation for all the embarrassing fantasies that had been running through my head since meeting him. And third, I mean, have you seen the guy? He was incredibly handsome. He's kind and charming and protective, and the first person to make me feel anything but sad in a long time. Oh God. Why did I make him leave again? Why was I pushing away the first good thing that happened to me after my dad died? I felt myself moving before I even understood what I was doing. I practically ran to the door and opened it. I was a woman with a mission. I didn't know where Taehyung was, but I decided I wasn't going to stop search until you find it. When I walked out into the hall though, my eyes immediately connected with his. I took a deep breath. He was sitting against the wall at the end of the long hallway, his knees drawn up. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown and he had huge dark circles under his eyes. My heart broke when I saw him. His eyes widened when he saw me, and he slowly got to his feet, as if he was afraid he might startle me. Hesitantly, I took a step toward him, and then another, and then he was practically running towards her. He met me halfway and I threw my arms around his neck. And suddenly everything was fine. Sweet relief from the pain I had endured for the last few days hit my body and a sob escaped my lips. Taehyung wrapped his arms tightly around my waist and then moved them under my ass so he could lift me. I wrapped my legs around his waist and clung to him like my life depended on it. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. God, I'm so sorry. I nodded to show I understood and pulled him closer. I'm sorry too, I whispered into her neck. He squeezed me gently. Words were no longer necessary. We stayed like that for a few minutes, just hugging each other and inspiring each other. It was pure bliss, and I wanted it to never end. But then Taehyung moved. I panicked. Would he put me down? Would he leave me again? Taehyung must have sensed my panic because he gently stroked my back as I walked. Shh, he said. I am here. He carried me past the room I'd spent the last few days and into the room next to it. Without letting go of me, he closed the door and led us to the bed. He laid us down so that we were on our sides, one facing the other. Another, our bodies intertwined. Our foreheads touched and for a while we just looked at each other. Our breaths fell into sync and everything felt so right. After some time, I raised my hand to touch the stains. Dark under your eyes. When was the last time you slept? I asked him. He gave a little shrug. Probably the last time you slept. I furrowed my brow. I've slept a lot the last few days. He pulled me closer, tightening his grip on me. You fainted. And it was never just for a few minutes. There is a difference between passing out and sleeping. How did you know I passed out? Because I felt it. I felt everything you went through. Xenotation spot felt? I asked in surprise. He shook his head slowly and ran his thumb across my cheekbone. Our bond is more intense than usual for a werewolf couple. Not sure why. I can feel your emotions more intensely. Typically, this doesn't happen until after you've completed the joining process. I shuddered when he slipped his hand under my shirt and stroked my back. Do I want to know what the joining process is? He smiled slightly. I'm probably not the best person to tell you. But I promise you will enjoy every second of it. You will beg me to continue. His eyes roamed between us, roaming over my body. He licked his lips hungrily. I scoffed and pushed his shoulder lightly. He growled playfully and held me tighter against him. His teeth bit into my ear. Tiso? I stammered as he leaned back to look at me. The joining process. Does this have to do with I cleared my throat a little. This? Taehyung's eyes sparkled with amusement. You mean segs, man? My cheeks flushed a dark red. Taehyung licked his lips and smiled. I nodded. Xenotation spot yes. It has to do with lots and lots of segs. His voice was deeper than usual, and I noticed that his eyes were slowly getting darker the more we talked about the subject. I shifted, uncomfortable with the thought of Taehyung and me having segs. He noticed that I was pulling away from him and immediately pulled closer. Nuh-uh. You're not going to run away from me. I don't care how nervous segs makes you. I looked everywhere but his eyes. He didn't know it, but I had never had segs before. I just didn't have time for dating when my dad got sick. The idea of having segs for the first time with someone who looked as experienced as Taehyung made my stomach drop. Taehyung's hand found my chin and he lifted my head until my eyes met his. You have nothing to worry about, beautiful. Nothing will happen until you are 100% ready and comfortable. And still, I will take care of you. I will always take care of you. I relaxed a little, though the idea still made me nervous. Hearing his words, I wanted to melt into a puddle. He pressed his forehead against mine again, and we stayed like that for a while. It was interesting to look into his black eyes. It was like they were sucking me in. I found myself reaching out and cupping his face. I ran my thumb under her eyes. Is that your wolf? I asked quietly. Taehyung placed his hand over mine and turned his head to kiss my palm softly. Xenotation spot yes. Are you going to change into a wolf now? No, don't worry about it. He's just watching you. I mean, he's always looking through my eyes. He is more present now because you are so close. I continued to stare into his eyes as the black swirled around his irises like mist. It was mesmerizing. Xenotation spot what is he doing now? He's been worrying about you. He doesn't like to see you so sad. It also keeps reminding me of the fact that you haven't eaten or slept in days. He's mad at me for not taking care of you. Can he talk to you? Taehyung shook his head. Xenotation spot no. He does not speak. After all, he is a wolf. But, somehow, we understand each other. We are the same being. My wolf is me as much as I am him. Huh, I sighed, intrigued by whatever Taehyung was saying. It was all very interesting. He likes that you're curious about him. You make him very happy. He likes to captivate your attention. He put a lock of hair behind my ear. Xenotation spot serious? You make us very happy. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just kept quiet. YN, Taehyung said, I need you to know how sorry I am for everything you've been through since meeting me. I know how scary and distressing this has all been for you. He squeezed my waist. And what's even worse is that I'm the cause of all your anguish. It kills me to see you so upset. I wish I had done all of this differently. It was just the circumstances under which we met that made it all so difficult. Just know that it was never supposed to be like this. I am really sorry. He looked like he was carrying so much pain, like he was going to collapse at any moment. Time. I leaned closer to him. So I stopped for a moment. What am I doing? I realized that I wanted to comfort him. The more time I spent with Taehyung, the less afraid I felt. In fact, I was starting to trust him. As strange as it seemed, trusting him felt natural. It looked easy. It's like being in your arms. And lying there, so close to Taehyung, there was nothing I wanted more than just being with him. I'm sorry too, I whispered. He furrowed his brows. Why are you apologizing? I sighed. I never gave you a chance. I was scared and I refused to hear. Even after you were so sweet to me, I refused to listen. Taehyung smiled slightly. As happy as I am to hear this, you had every right to be scared. I couldn't imagine being in your shoes. His thumb began tracing circles around my hip bone as he held me around the waist. I moved closer to him. You were right, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Xenotation spot about what? I looked deeply into his eyes. I took a deep breath and looked deeply into his eyes. So intense as he waited for me to speak. Well, can we? He took my hand and intertwined our fingers. He gave a gentle squeeze, telling me to keep going. Never mind, I snapped. Well, that won't work, Taehyung said. He moved so that his face was hovering just a few inches above the my. He put his hand on my waist. Head. Xenotation spot no. It's not important. His hand wandered under my shirt. I tried to stop him, but he said, Are you ticklish, beautiful? I gaped at him. Was he planning to tickle me? I'm not ticklish, I said quickly. He leaned in until his lips grazed my ear. I can feel when you lie, baby, he whispered. Just tell me what you were gonna say and I'll do nothing. Seriously, it doesn't matter. I promise. I don't believe you. He moved his fingers against my skin in a way that made me laugh hysterically. I squirmed and grabbed his hands, but he continued to tickle me mercilessly. Xenotation spot stop. I yelled between giggles. Taehyung, stop. Just tell me what you were going to say and I'll stop. Xenotation spot no. I laughed. I'm not telling you. I tried to push him away from me, but he wouldn't budge. He laughed with me. Xenotation spot just tell me. He started tickling me harder, and I nearly wet my pants laughing. Okay. Taehyung finally gave up and sat back. I was going to ask you to kiss me. I put my hand over my mouth. I couldn't believe I had just said that. Xenotation spot what? Taehyung asked in shock. I couldn't even look at him. I was mortified. Well, I didn't mean that I, wanted you to kiss me, I just, Taehyung's face was suddenly right in front of me. Thank God, he whispered. And then he kissed me.